Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Esther, the 3rd chapter. And in this chapter, we start to see now the plot of Haman, right? Which was an Edomite, actually an Amalekite, who had it within him, basically bore that hatred against us, or against the Jews at this time, and went as far as to getting permission from the king to exterminate the Jews, right? And so we're going to go into it now. In the 2nd chapter, right, we ended off with, I believe it was Mordecai saving the king, right? He found out about the other two guards that were plotting to assassinate the king. Okay, so this is the book of Esther chapter 3. Now within here, I think somewhere around the 15th verse or so, we're going to then jump to the editions of Esther chapter 13, and the first 7 verses here they go along with this chapter here in Esther chapter 3. So this is Esther chapter 3 verse 1. After these things did Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. So Haman was promoted pretty much to be like second to the king, right above everybody. And as it says here, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, when we look into this word here, Agagites, now we know the suffix ite means pertaining to, so, or people of. And in this case, you can see it says Agagite, son of Haman, Haman the Agagite. Right, it says here, Strong's definition, partial, an Agagite or descendant of Agag. Okay, so now let's go to the root word here, which is Agag or Agag. And it says here, Agag, I will overtop, king of Amalek, spared by Saul but slain by Samuel. And you can read this in the book of Samuel. I forget exactly if it was 1st or 2nd, more than likely 1st Samuel, when Saul was commanded to go and slay the Amalekites, but he ended up sparing the king, and Samuel ended up taking him out. However, we can see here, right, that and fast forwarding into the future, you now have one of his descendants here as Haman. So back to the book of Esther chapter 3, continuing in verse 2. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. So after promoting him, he commanded that all should reverence him, right? But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? So why is it that it's a commandment? Nobody's supposed to go against the king's commandment. Plus, you're serving in the king's court, and you're just ignoring this. Like, what's up? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. So, whenever Haman would be around and everybody else would reverence him and bow, Mordecai wouldn't. And so as the other servants continually pressed him about it, he told him that it was because he was a Jew. And as we know, right, we really only serve Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. So by hearing this, they're like, oh, so this is why he doesn't do, X, Y, and Z. And they went in and let it be known unto Haman to see if that was going to be acceptable or not. And we'll see what ended up happening here as a result of that. Verse 5, and when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then Haman was full of wrath. So he was pissed, and he sought because you can, first off, Edomites are proud to begin with, right? Now you're an Edomite. This is an Edomite who is proud and in a position of authority to where he's permitted to be proud. And then you have an Israelite here who is not reverencing him, right? You can imagine why he was so pissed. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone. So meaning that he didn't think it was even it wasn't enough for him to just lay hands or punish Mordecai alone. No, he was like, that's not going to be enough. For they had shewed him the people of Mordecai. So they informed him that it was because Mordecai was a Jew, or in this case an Israelite, that he didn't do this. So by him finding that out, he said, nah, Mordecai alone ain't going to be enough. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. Show you how an Edomite thinks, right? So he said it wasn't enough that Mordecai alone should be punished. Exterminate all of his people. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. So they cast lots to select a day and a month that would be ideal for them to go ahead and carry out this operation. So they cast lots for what day it should be and what month it should be. And as it says, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. So what he ended up doing was he went to the king and phrased this matter in such a way as to demonize the Jews here by saying, and this is similar to what those governors, right, did when we were rebuilding the temple, right? They wrote letters to Cambyses and said, hey, you got to stop these people from continuing to build because they're rebellious people. They're going to do harm to the kingdom, yada, yada, yada. And really, instead of just saying he was pissed because Mordecai didn't reverence him, he turned it into a matter, phrased it in such a way that it would justify him eliminating not just Mordecai, but the rest of his people. Verse 9, if it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it into the king's treasuries. So he would deposit 10,000 talents of silver, right, into the king's treasuries as a result. Verse 10, and the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, or the Jews' enemy. Now that ring, which was it had the king's signet on it, and by him giving it to Haman, it signified transferring power to Haman, so that Haman wouldn't need any further approval in order to carry out this plan here. Because whenever a law or a message was stamped by the king's signet, then it was official. It is in other words, authorizing it in the king's stead. So now Haman had that power to go ahead and do what he wanted to do. Verse 11, and the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good unto thee. So you're in control now. Go ahead, you do whatever it is that you think is best. Because remember, he was promoted, right? Ahasuerus really held Haman in high regard. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, And there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to the people after their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring. And that letter that was written is what we're going to read in the editions of Esther, the 13th chapter. That's why I said we're going to jump from about the 15th verse here, or not even the 15th verse, really from here, the 12th verse, or maybe the 13th, to the editions of Esther. So he basically had this letter written, scribed down in the name of the king, and he said so that this would be written and sent throughout the whole entire kingdom, right? The Achaemenid Empire at this time. So that's all the way from the west of Ethiopia all the way to the east, India, right, or the border of India, all the way there, all that region. Verse 13. And the letters were sent by posts into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey, because that is the day that the lot that they had cast fell upon, right? The 13th day of the 12th month, and that's the day that they had given a royal decree to exterminate all the Jews within the different provinces. So now let's jump from here to the editions of Esther, chapter 13, verse 1, and we'll read on to the 7th verse, because that's the context we want to get from here. The 8th verse on down, we'll come back to that as we go into Esther chapter 4. So this is the additions to Esther chapter 13, verse 1. The copy of the letters was this, right? The letters that we just read about that were scribed down. The great King Artaxerxes, which in the blue letter, or really in the conventional canonical Bible, he's referred to here as Ahasuerus. The great King Artaxerxes writeth these things to the princes and governors that are under him, from India unto Ethiopia, in 127 provinces. So 127 provinces. After that I became lord over many nations, and had dominion over the whole world, not lifted up with presumption of my authority, but carrying myself always with equity and mildness. I purposed to settle my subjects continually in a quiet life. So my intention was to have it to where all of you can enjoy a quiet, non-troublesome life, and making my kingdom peaceable and open for passage to the utmost coasts, to renew peace, which is desired of all men. Now when I asked my counselors how this might be brought to pass, Haman, that excelled in wisdom among us, and was approved for his constant good will and steadfast fidelity, and had the honor of the second place in the kingdom, declared unto us that in all nations throughout the world there was scattered a certain malicious people that had laws contrary to all nations. Now remember, this was really crafted by Haman, right? That's why he's wording it this way. And these malicious people are referring to the Jews. And continually despise the commandments of kings, so as the uniting of our kingdoms, honorably intended by us, cannot go forward. So pretty much there are these people, these malicious people, known for being defiant, and due to them, we're not able to carry out our intentions of uniting our kingdoms and bringing that peace to everybody. Verse 5, seeing then, all this because Mordecai did not bow or reverence Haman. Seeing then, we understand that this people alone is continually in opposition unto all men, differing in the strange manner of their laws, and evil affected to our state. So these people here are a corruption. They're like a virus in our kingdom, right? They don't follow our ways. Their ways are separate. Their ways are different. They like strife. They're always opposing everything, working all the mischief they can, that our kingdom may not be firmly established. So these were really lies, right? Making it, like I said, demonizing the Jews, making them sound like these are the face of terror. Sounds similar to what Esau does today, doesn't it? Verse 6. So today, what would be an example? Today, an example is they would come and give a press conference, and then they would put this all over the news, right? And they would paint this narrative. Oh, these guys are this, they're violent, they're this, they're that, and for that reason we must take action. Similar to how they push those narratives today, this is what Haman was doing back then. Verse 6, therefore have we commanded that all they that are signified in writing unto you by Amen, and in other words, when it says all they, it means everything that is signified in writing unto you by Amen, who is ordained over the affairs, and is next unto us, shall all, with their wives and children, be utterly destroyed by the sword of their enemies. So all that, like I mentioned, all that is signified in this writing, more specifically, the nation of people, right, that are targeted in this writing, both them and their wives and children should be utterly destroyed by the sword of their enemies. And remember, this goes back to the vision that Mordecai had in the beginning, right? When we started off with the editions of Esther chapter 10, I believe. That's like the equivalent of the first chapter in there. But Mordecai had that vision, right, about the two dragons going at it with each other. And then all of a sudden the enemies, the great people that were gathered against the holy people, which were Israelites. So Mordecai had seen this in the vision already. Anyway, it says here, be utterly destroyed by the sword of their enemies, without all mercy and pity, the 14th day of the 12th month Adar of this present year, that they who of old and now also are malicious may in one day with violence go into the grave, and so ever hereafter cause our affairs to be well settled and without trouble. So in other words, exterminate these people, exterminate the nation of the Jews, so that we can finally have peace in our province. So, like I said, this covers the point that we wanted to get on what was the actual contents in the letter that was written here, that we're reading of in verse 12. So now that we know that, reading verse 13 again. And the letters were sent by posts into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. So they had time to prepare, and this copy was sent out all through, that everybody should be ready, and that day would be the day of the extermination of the Jews. Verse 15, and so this is giving you a bit of background as to why we keep the holy day, right, of Purim. Because as we will read and later on find out, the Lord turned this day that was appointed to be a day of destruction upon Israel, rather into a day of deliverance, which was also seen in Mordecai's vision. Verse 15, the post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. Yeah, because you had a lot of Israelites in there as well. So people were confused, like, whoa, what's going on? What do you, what? They're gonna exterminate the Jews? What? Because, yes, you had wicked people amongst Israel, but generally, right, even at this time, imagine you might have Israelites working in the same vicinity or whatnot as other nations, because there was a conglomerate of different people in this empire. And you may have them being good workers, being in good positions, being in certain places. So now everybody's like confused, like, wait, what is this? Where is this decree coming from? All of a sudden we gotta do what now? But anyway, that brings us to the end of the book of Esther, the 3rd chapter. And so, Lord willing, next time we'll go into the 4th chapter. And as we go through the parts that, have a correlation to different parts in the additions to Esther, we'll jump over there to keep it in order so you can have the most context. Because if you read just the book of Esther alone by itself and then read the additions of Esther by itself, it won't make sense chronologically. Like, you'll get the gist of what's going on in here, but where and how it applies and which parts it actually took place in terms of chronological events will be off. So hopefully this makes it a bit more helpful. Anyway, Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.